The 8th generation of gaming is finally coming to an end with the release of the Series X and PlayStation 5 later this year, and the console exclusives have been killer on Sony's side. God of War, Uncharted 4, Spider-Man, and The Last of Us 2. Okay, maybe not so much on that last one, but all of these games have one quality they share. Each game, to some extent, feels like a movie more than a game. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of it. All of these games 100% deserve the praise they receive, and I'm not trying to downplay their success, but I miss when games felt more like, well, a game. It's why my favorite games of all time don't necessarily have the greatest narratives ever told in this medium. When Ghost of Tsushima's gameplay was revealed at E3 2018, I was taken back by how it was revealed. There weren't any fancy CG cutscenes, it just jumped straight into it, and the plot seemed to be a secondary aspect. It was a bold choice for Sucker Punch to make, considering the success of PlayStation's killer apps and how they push the boundary of what a game could be. To be fair, it's quite refreshing to see from Sony at the end of the generation, but does it give the PS4 the proper send-off it deserves? Well, let's join Jin on his journey to return to the past and undo the future that is Aku. Okay, the actual story doesn't have any time travel, but it does involve Jin Sakai attempting to save the island of Tsushima from invading Mongols. An epic battle takes place on Komoda Beach, where he joins his uncle, Lord Shimura, who gets captured. Jin attempts to save him, but is confronted by the leader of the invaders, Khoten Khan, who proceeds to throw Jin off a bridge.
Finish him!
After waking up on the beach, Jin officially starts his journey and slowly loses his honor as a samurai and becomes the ghost of Tsushima. The journey is separated into 3 acts, which involve forming a small army to save your uncle, recapturing the capital of Tsushima, and defeating Khan. Most of the events are pretty boring until Act 2's ending. 2/3 of the game is essentially just building an army to stop the Mongols, and eventually it changes into the moral dilemma of the actions one chooses in war. This idea is touched upon in the beginning of Act 2 when Lord Shimura tells Jin,
You serious?
Toward the end of Act 2 is when Shimura sends a formal request to adopt Jin as his own son after the war is over. Sadly, things go south for the two as they both argue over the best way to take back Shimura's stronghold. Shimura wants to defeat the Mongols with the honorable samurai way, but Jin wants to sneak behind the enemy lines to deal the fatal blow to their forces. Against the wishes of his uncle, Jin poisons the Mongols and brings dishonor to his name. Shimura rescinds his order to adopt Jin and arrests him. At this point, the player is on the side of Jin since he potentially just saved hundreds of lives. But then reality sets in. The Mongols have recreated the poison used on them to wreak havoc on the natives of Tsushima. It was nice to see the consequences of Jin's actions for becoming the ghost, and there are moments when the inhabitants of the island are afraid of him after hearing the rumors about what he's done. The ending plays out as one would think, with the Khan falling in the end, but I didn't expect what would happen after. Shimura requests Jin to meet him at the Sakai estate. As the two make their way to pay respects to Jin's parents, both speak of the events that transpired, and Jin says he does not regret the choices he made. Once arriving at Jin's parents' grave, Shimura tells him he's been ordered to kill the ghost. The two duel, with Jin being the victor, and a choice is given to the player. Let Shimura live or die. It's an emotional moment in the story for sure, but as a whole, the tension throughout the entirety of Ghost of Tsushima was lackluster, partially due to the presentation. Cutscenes lack a certain polish compared to other Sony exclusives due to cinematography, animations, the fade to black transitions from gameplay to cutscenes, and terrible lip syncing. Full disclosure, I played the audio in Japanese with English subtitles. I could make the excuse that it was just to make Ghost of Tsushima feel like I was watching a samurai movie, But the truth is, I'm a dirty, filthy weeb. When I heard the voice actor of Zoro from One Piece's Jin, I squealed like a little girl, and there are more voice actors from the anime as other characters. But all jokes aside, these issues break the immersion and impact the story has. Ghost of Tsushima is one gorgeous looking game though. I'm usually not a fan of the realistic art style as it tends to age poorly, but the developers remembered colors do exist. Environments pop out because of the bright colors used when running past mountains full of lush flora, autumn leaves blowing through the wind, and even in subdued grassy fields. The lighting, however, can make these vibrant areas go from stunning to just ugly depending on the time of day in game. During sunrise and sunset, areas get a noticeable red hue and eliminates just about any color present in the world. To be fair, it does depend on the area, as locations with an abundance of darker colors will look muddier in comparison to others. The soundtrack follows the trend from other open world games. Players will only hear wildlife and occasional gusts of wind while exploring, but the battle themes are intense and fit with the feeling of being a samurai. Instruments used captures the traditional sound many hear from samurai movies, and the audio design enhances combat, like when swords clash or when readying a bow. This makes exploring the island of Tsushima feel like a living, breathing world, which is also complemented by the gameplay. It helps when open worlds have clever design elements that draw attention to certain parts of the overworld. Main roads will always lead to an area with collectibles or side quests. Selecting a quest on the map will activate a wind that guides the player to the location and, in some cases, unknown areas. This doesn't mean that quests need to be done right away, because paying attention to one's surroundings can lead to hidden objectives close by. Birds can guide the player to nearby quests, and smoke signals can show where missions are, with black smoke signifying Mongol territory and white smoke signaling side quests. White smoke also leads to shrines dedicated to fallen warriors with customizable decals for Jin's weapons, shrines that need to be climbed in order to obtain charms to upgrade Jin's stats and abilities, fox shrines which allow for more charms to be equipped, but more importantly, you could pet the foxes! Bamboo cutting to upgrade resolve, and hot springs, which give Jin a boost in, wait, what was I talking about again? Oh yeah, spas give a health boost or something. While there is a ton to find in the world, it surprisingly lacks a sense of freedom. What causes this is the map given to the player, which is gradually revealed as Jin defeats Mongol-occupied areas. The problem is, secret and side quests are shown as well before even discovering them, and then they can be pinged on the map at any time. It's weird considering all of the ways a player can find these naturally by exploring the world, but even these mechanics have problems too. Some smoke signals will not appear until the player is close enough to the location, and in many instances, the world itself blocks the field of vision for the player to find these. If I can't see my surroundings, it decentivizes me to explore off the beaten path. Even birds taking Jin to areas of interest will lead him to quests already selected. This could have been solved by not allowing animals to lead players to currently pinged objectives, and they're distracting enough to make the players alter their course anyway. The result is an open world that feels linear about 50% of the time. If they eliminated some of the environments impeding the player's vision, this could easily be solved. But to be fair, when all of these mechanics complement one another, it's amazing. Combat is definitely the best aspect about Ghost of Tsushima, but it does have a learning curve. Enemy attacks can be blocked, but the best option is to press the block button right before an attack lands to parry the blow and get in an advantageous position. A perfect parry is activated when pressing block at the precise moment an enemy's attacks will hit Jin, allowing for a quick counterattack. This same method also applies to the perfect dodge. There are a plethora of attacks at the player's disposal that can be unlocked by using ability points earned by completing side quests, raiding occupied Mongol territory, or defeating random enemies in the overworld. The most useful techniques come from the 4 stances the player learns. Each stance is strong against certain enemy types and can deal quick work to groups when swapping between each. Water, stone, moon, wind. Only the chosen one of the clan Sakai could master the 4 stances of the samurai. but when the world needed him most, he became the Ghost instead and just started slaughtering everyone. Sneaking around as the Ghost is a great way to deal with enemies. I would stealthily move around Mongol camps to even the playing field. My advice is to upgrade your Ghost senses, as it will allow Jin to see enemies from far away and move faster when in this mode. It's also a good way to quickly fill up the resolve gauge, which is used to heal and perform special attacks. There's also an unlockable avatar state that can defeat enemies with one swift strike. If you feel like being an honorable samurai, you can challenge the Mongols to a standoff, and doing so will automatically beat enemies in one strike. The two combat styles I gravitated toward the most were stealth and standoffs. It's not just because these easily fill up the resolve meter, but regular combat can feel a little clunky at times when too many enemies surround Jin. This is because targeting enemies doesn't work 100% of the time, since players need to tilt the control stick toward a specific Mongol. I had instances where I would hold the stick at an enemy only for it to completely ignore them, or outright attack in the opposite direction. It also doesn't help when I try to readjust the camera after dodging. In certain Mongol camps, adjusting the camera caused my view of the battlefield to become obscured due to objects I couldn't already see. A simple lock-on function can easily fix this issue somewhat. With that being said, the combat is still incredibly satisfying, and it's easy to forgive as it's the company's first go at this style of game. The open world had clever mechanics to encourage exploration, even though at times it felt linear and more like a checklist of things to do. Despite these complaints, I think the game is well worth it, and honestly, I just appreciate the fact that Ghost of Tsushima felt more like a game than a movie. But what do I know? I'm just some random guy on the internet who decided to review Ghost of Tsushima on the PlayStation 4. Remember to like this video and subscribe for more game reviews, and I'll see you next time.